Ladies and gentlemen, welcome on this 16th of November 2020. Welcome to the Global Smart Mobility Forum. The first session of the agenda is focusing on new corporate mobility environment. Companies will manage total mobility for all employees, not only focusing on a small group of company cars or another specific group. No, the corporate fleet manager has transformed into a global mobility architect. He will develop and execute a complete and integrated mobility strategy of the company. Ladies and gentlemen, I have been told that Romain Trébuil is among us. Yeah, Romain, please may I invite you to join me on stage. Welcome. Please, may I ask you to be seated over there, the right-hand side, thank you. Romain Trébuil is Global Purchasing Manager at L'Oréal. He will share his expertise regarding the role of the global mobility architect. And as far as I'm concerned, ladies and gentlemen, I was really impressed by this witness. And we'd like to open a little bit the discussion. Reason why I'd like to invite also 3 corporate managers for discussing the item, the issue about global mobility architects. So, may I also invite Mr. Daan Bieleveld, Global Mobility Manager, Royal DSM. Daan, welcome. Thank you. We also have Ms. Velma Baptiste-Destouche. She is Global Health and Safety Manager, British American Tobacco. But is she already here? Is she arrived already? Because, ladies and gentlemen, she was in a cab, taken probably in traffic congestion, but she will arrive. So my proposal is to go further with and to invite Mr. Henrik Schmidt Lundberg, Head of Group Fleet Management, ISS World Services. Welcome, Henrik. And last but not least, Mrs. Velma Baptiste-Destouche. You took our attention, really, succeed. Please, take a seat. Take a seat, but also take a breath. So I repeat, she is the Global Health and Safety Manager, British American Tobacco. So we're ready to start a panel discussion. I would say a round table, but in 2020 we don't have tables anymore. We can almost start because the missing link is, yes, we need a moderator. And we find him in the person of Steven Schroefs. He is Chief Editor of Fleet Europe. Steven, please.
Thank you. So, good morning, everyone. Velma, it's really a pleasure to see you here. We were on the phone, I think, 5-10 minutes ago. As a mobility manager, it's always a little bit the Murphy's Law if you are invited to talk about mobility and you are stuck in a traffic jam. But okay, you are here, that's the most important thing. It's also really a pleasure to have 4 mobility architects with me here on stage. Just to reflect a little bit on where we were in 2016. Can you, Velma, tell us how many vehicles did you manage in 2016? Yes, you can share the microphones.
Thank you. Around about 26,000
okay.
vehicles.
We will do the same with Henrik from ISS. How many vehicles did you have in 2016?
Around about 20,000.
You, Daan?
1,800.
1,800. And Romain?
And 10,000 vehicles.
Okay, we have witnessed that in the 4 years between 2016 and 2020, there have been some developments. Also, your role has changed. It was outlined in the video that we saw. And we have prepared, together with fleet managers and the editorial team, some topics and we would like to discuss that with you in a 30 minutes discussion. So Romain mentioned a number of essential qualities to be a successful global mobility architect, notably an insight into the business, daring to be a game changer, to innovate, to perform, to lead, have knowledge, and know how to integrate and to communicate. Velma, Romain, he is responsible for the mobility at L'Oréal. You are within British American Tobacco. Do you believe that the list of Romain is correct and complete? Or is there something missing where you say, well, if I look at my company, that's perhaps a quality that is also needed or that should be in there in that list?
I think the list is actually complete. It's probably a matter of emphasis. It's the importance of collaboration, and collaboration can take place within the organisation as well as working with your OEMs externally. So from that point of view, I think we've got a complete list. And then it's a case of how you use data. Every aspect of having that global mobility architect requires you to have credible data, and it's making sure you have access to it to then convert it to make a difference for your organisation.
Okay, we will come back on the big data and data question. Henrik, at ISS, you are a global facilities company. How do you see, let's say, the qualities that you need as a global mobility architect to be sure that you can implement, develop, and also roll out an efficient global mobility program for all your employees?
In terms of abilities, I think it's spot on. What I would like to add is that, is it on?
Yes, it is on.
The governance around having a structure. Can
you put it?
Is it here?
Yes,
oh,
it's better.
The success and the ability to make a change really needs the governance for you to manage your stakeholders. You need your management buy-in in this, but you also need the operational buy-in. So in terms of abilities, totally spot on, but I would really adhere that also in a company of the size of 26,000 or 20,000, well, you have a lot of stakeholders that you need to manage in order to be a successful architect.
Mm-hmm. And how do you think that you can do that? Because it will become more complex, probably, if you have more stakeholders involved.
Well, I can only speak for myself, and the way that we do it is that I am, answering to a steering committee where we have our top management that is involved in my decisions, and we also manage a category team of some of the strongest stakeholders globally. That is where we are being challenged in our decisions and the way that we're moving, and thereby we are getting the buy-in from both operations but also from top management, and really getting their commitment in order to do the change, because you cannot do it by yourself.
Okay. Daan, you are a global mobility manager since years. You have also developed a mobility strategy within your company. From your point of view, what are the key steps to establish and develop a corporate vision on global mobility? What are some essential steps to come to do the path, let's say, forward to your global mobility strategy?
I think it was also clear in the video before. I think the most important thing is that you really understand what your company's core value is, or even core values are. For our company, that's sustainability, and within mobility we can, of course, think of numerous projects to have a beneficial situation for sustainability. And then, as Henrik said, you need to have the buy-in of your organization and the different levels in your management. So top-down and bottom-up, try it with local initiatives and pilots, and maybe have the influence of your managing board to roll out a global policy. Both work really well in the company, and sometimes the easier solutions are the best to start, give a benefit instead of taking something away. Creates more buy-in to further develop other things.
Mm-hmm. How complex is it, as you have an international role, a global role, to deal with mobility in a way that mobility often is, let's say, best practiced on a local level? So you have to combine, let's say, local complexity with international or global objectives and strategy.
Yeah, there is a lot of going on local level, and not every project or opportunity we see can be rolled out on a global level. So we can set the strategy and the vision which can be embedded in sustainability, safety on a global level. But on a local level, there are different opportunities, and we should share best practices and for sure give the opportunities to local countries to take their path and pilot everything that's going on. There's so much going on in mobility these years with all the apps coming that we shouldn't be scared of trying new things out and share those best practices in every country.
So to end, let's say, this part, you are not afraid, let's say, to fail when you launch a new mobility initiative. Am I right that when you talk about mobility, when you are a global mobility architect, that you also have, let's say, dare to innovate, to test something, and it can go wrong, but that's not really harmful, let's say?
Of course, yeah, it can go wrong, but yeah, it's not the worst case. So just try it, and it's a lot of fun. The journey is a lot of fun. You can learn a lot of what went wrong, and yeah, next time do it better.
Okay, Romain, you already explained really well how you see your role as a global mobility architect. An element that you underlined was the fact that when you talk about mobility management, when you develop mobility management, it has to include all employees and not just those eligible for the company car that we knew in 2016. It's a nice thought, but it's easier said than done, of course. How are you going to secure, let's say, the degree of compliance that everyone is also fitted into the program, uses the mobility modes that you have selected in the right way? What can you do to make sure that everyone also feels involved in the mobility program that you develop?
First, upstream in the project, the goal is really to listen all the users, all the employees, and to understand their needs, and then to build something which fits their need. Then you just talk about fail. It's not a problem if everybody doesn't use the product or the new mobility solutions, but we need to do our best. So to do our best, it's clearly involve them upstream for the selection of the supplier, the selection of the mobility solution and so on, to ask them directly. So we have few examples, or we want to directly bring the vehicles or the solutions or the platform directly to them, and they will select, they will vote for this. So like this, they will be involved. And then it's all about communication, training, and then yeah, continuous training always. But I think if the solution is good, it's more about a good marketing and a good communication. They don't have to be trained so much, because we try to find solutions which look like B2C solutions, so they are used to use it. So a good communication, challenge themselves, and then don't be afraid that if everybody don't use it, it's for all. But if everybody don't use it, it's not too bad.
Okay, let's now become a little bit more concrete in terms of the mobility modes that can be used. I would like to know from Henrik first, and then Velma can react on that. What kind of new mobility services, alternative mobility, do you see are serving your company best, and why?
I think I need to go a little high level on this one, because the idea that mobility is creating profitability and also creating the ability to bring services to our customers is actually what I'm looking for. A company like ours is that we are 500,000 people today, and we are serving our customers on site. And that means that we have a lot of site managers that are having their own P&L responsibility. And if we are able to make this mobility tangible and also make it profitable, that it actually hitting them, then we have a great communication directly into to their profitability, and that will actually be what we will push. We are trying to create this with our partners. We are seeing a lot of possibilities within the market, but it's also very little tangible, a lot of these ideas that we see out there today. So the ideas that will be pushed from our side and what that will be successful within ISS, those are the ideas where we are actually collaborative together with our external partners, finding out, to your point also, what are the triggers within ISS, what kind of innovations or mobility possibilities will actually have an effect within our organization, and that is also the belief that is where we will become successful. So I don't have, the
2, 3, 4 mobility modes?
We are looking into a lot of possibilities right now, and I see myself as the gatekeeper and also ensuring that we are taking the best innovations and actually trying to escalate those within ISS.
Okay. Velma, British American Tobacco, global company, I think 200 countries, something like that. If you look at the alternative mobility modes that have been developed in recent years by let's say, traditional mobility and car fleet suppliers, also innovators and disruptors. How do you see, what type of mobility modes do you see as a best fit for your company?
I think we're very similar to what Henrik explained in the fact that the pace in which we can innovate and make use of what the best modal technology is out there is very much based on what the company is going to be comfortable in terms of moving forward with. So in terms of, first of all, recognizing what it is we're trying to do as a business, looking at the technology that's actually out there and getting that the best way to move forward is how we are actually allowing the two together. We're not going to take some great leaps if that's not going to help the business. It's the business that enables us to have a mobility architect there in the first place. So they've both got to stay pace with each other. So from that point of view is that we'll make the use of the best things out there as and when it's right and functionally right for the business. Okay.
Daan, you have already a large palette of mobility solutions in place. How do you see yourself keeping up to date and identifying, let's say, relevant innovation with so many players in the field, the disruptors that are coming up and are expanding? How do you do that?
Yeah, it is a challenge. A lot of the networking and events, and they are a lot of fun, so I would really enjoy going only to the networking events and keeping up to date, but that is possible. You need to implement them too. So you have to find the right balance. You can't do everything on your own, so you have to have the buy-in of different stakeholders in your organization and have mobility on the agenda in your own organization, and then within HR, purchasing, finance, all the different areas and business groups in your organization, you will see that people will come with new ideas that we can implement. And what I really like to do is talk to peer companies. We have a pretty holistic function within our own company, and we have the tendency to invent the wheel again and again, where other companies, where we can learn from what they did already and was successful. So yeah, that is the right balance for me to keep up to date and to implement new opportunities.
You talked about involving stakeholders. Okay, can you give us a flavor of what kind of stakeholders, next to the traditional ones that we knew from the fleet era, are now also involved in the global mobility discussions that you have? Are there new departments that are also now really important? And then next to that, how do you see the future of your own role as global mobility architect?
Yeah, I think the departments are as broad as the whole company. Okay. You should even have it on a managing board level, I think, from a company perspective. For our company, mobility is not in terms of saving or even a CO2 footprint the highest on the agenda, but it is on visibility and branding of our company. We want to be a sustainable leader, and the car benefit or the mobility benefit is one of the most visible items we can give to employees. So it's really practice what you preach, and if you set the margins right, I think you have to have the buy-in from the managing board. You need that.
Romain, also at L'Oréal, you have that palette, let's say, of mobility modes. How do you see the evolution of that? Do you think that in the future you will, let's say, steadily, let's say, expand those kind of mobility modes? And in what fields are you looking when it comes to new mobility modes and to integrate into your mobility management strategy?
Actually, we will always scouting and looking for new mobility solution. But I think a lot of new mobility solutions have appeared last years.
Okay.
I think we are going on test and learn methodology. So we are developing different mobility solutions now in various countries. It can be local, regional, or global. But then I think in a couple of years we will make maybe next year or in 2 years we will make just a review of all these mobility solutions and what will be the best one in line with the core value of the company. But I think the global the main trend will be to share the car. The sharing, it's not only for fleet, it's for every business area. The share market is huge. We see it with Airbnb, with Trébuil for short-term car rental, for many solutions. So I think car sharing can be improved and developed again and again. So it's new challenge facing with the OEMs and leasers because they have to sell cars actually or to lease cars. So how we can optimize these numbers of solutions, and I think we will have more and more various solutions in front of us. It has to be linked to all the needs, and we have new generation of millennials which are coming in the companies, and they will have more and more new habits in consumption. So we need to follow them and to listen them, and then to propose the right solutions.
Daan, do you believe that in the upcoming years, when it comes to your benefit fleet, that the number of company cars will also gradually decline? Or do you think that that might not have such an effect on, let's say, the total number of company cars that you have?
Yeah, it's a difficult question. We started with private leasing last year within our company, and it was so successful that you could raise the question whether why we still have a company car policy. The market is changing, and in the company car area, I might expect that there will be some changes now too. It's not only happening in the private area. But from the car sharing perspective, I expect that in the coming years we will have less cars on the road. And there are cheaper and better alternatives to share mobility. And maybe after 2020, when we have self-driving cars, it isn't even requested by employees to have an own car sitting there where they pay a lot of money for. So in that perspective, yes, over the coming years, I think that there will be a decline, but it will be more a 5 or 10 year plan than next year.
Velma, at British American Tobacco, you also have quite a lot of service vehicles. And how do you see, let's say, the integration of new mobility modes and new mobility in that area?
I think we would break it down into the area between, we'd separate the benefit cars. It's a very emotive area to try to innovate and move forward on, but focusing on the delivery aspect of that, we would just make use of what's the best technology that we've got there, and that's where data becomes important to us, because that ultimately starts shaping how we deliver the speed of delivery, and equally what type of vehicles or mode of transport will be best out there to actually service our customers, which will always be king to us. So it's just a case of how we then make use of the technology, and it's not just in terms of vehicles, it's about the data, which is now important. Now we're going into the area of telematics, and then how you, again, like I mentioned earlier, it's about how you convert that to make a difference in terms of the mode of transport that you actually use.
Okay. Romain, I want to come back to you. If you look at the mobility modes that you already have developed and are used within L'Oréal, often people think that you don't have to do it for cost efficiency at this time, yes, that it can be still quite costly. From your experience, can also mobility management be, let's say, cost efficient in terms of benefiting for your TCO?
Yes, yeah, for sure. I think it's a different perspective for Prism to see the TCO and the TCO optimization. But yes, when you are launching, when you share your car, when you reduce the CO2 consumptions, when you have these new trends, at the end of the day, the TCO will be improved. I think the best, the main lever is to change the driver behavior, because as you know, you can give the same car to two different people, and the price can be variable by 40%, so it can impact everything. So I think we have many innovations and applications which can help directly the driver to change their behavior. So we need, our role is really to push this new application to the driver. It have to stay simple. They have to find it as on the Apple Store as usual, to download by themselves, and to start to use it. And I don't know if your company, but at L'Oréal, everybody loves challenge and love to be challenged. So every time when they see that they can do a better job or drive better, they will improve naturally how they drive. So there is an impact on the TCO. Car sharing, as you mentioned, now we are developing new fleets. So yes, it costs a bit more, but the next step will be to share this fleet also with managers. So the step 2 will be maybe reducing the cost. And it's not only TCO, but it's important to be in line with the core value and the priorities of your company. And for L'Oréal, there is 3 main strategic plan. This is digitalization. So clearly with the app, we have it. Sharing Beauty with All, which is the CSR program. So we're reducing the CO2, so it's really important. And Share and Care, this is the HR program. So with a better mobility, we can improve it. A new solution, we can improve it for the HR as well.
Okay. Henrik, looking at the industry, we know the fleet and mobility suppliers, the leasing companies, the car manufacturers, insurance companies, and so on. We have the disruptors that are now, let's say, innovating a little bit the industry and also giving food for thought to the traditional ones in terms of their business model. Can you explain a little bit what you miss from the traditional suppliers to make your mobility management even more successful, easier to integrate, develop, etc.? Is there something that you can share that you say, this is something that would be nice to have or even a must to have?
I would say the overall, coming back to my previous notion, was that it needs to be tangible. I hear a lot of ideas and I hear a lot of talk on how mobility is improvement and what we can do, but I also adhere to the fact that we can lower the TCO, but what we are having a huge problem is actually defining the baseline. So if that baseline is not defined, it doesn't really matter that we are lowering the TCO. So integrating our suppliers into that dialogue and getting them to push us in order to improve it, that is really, really going to be the next step, and how we will develop our partnerships within ISS. In terms of disruptors, it's actually a total different agenda. I mean, the term in itself is that we do not know that it's coming, so I don't see it out there. I'm open for it, and we'll just need to see what happens.
Okay. A final question for Velma. In becoming a global mobility architect, we see it's a complex world, let's say. Is it fun or is it hard work to be a global mobility architect? Perhaps it's both.
It's both. I think on the subject of technology, and you see new technology coming online, just in seeing the difference how telematics has moved over the years, about how telematics goes right the way down to the driver, and he gets the gamification aspect from there to the types of vehicle that's around, whereby once upon a time you had to really put a lot of effort into reversing. Now it's almost nearly hands-free, and you get the opportunity to drive and test drive vehicles. I mean, come on, it's great fun being in this area of work. But at the same time, it's hard work because of the collaboration that is necessary. It's not the prerogative of one department that makes this global mobility work. It's about listening to the people at a local level and then seeing what can be made global. So from that point of view, you've always got to have your best listening ears on to hear what the local market can really achieve before you try to see what can be scaled to do globally. And then keeping everybody happy, it's difficult. We haven't gone into the area of benefit cars, but it's in a very emotive area even now. But as long as you keep the right people together, the right stakeholders, and you're engaging them in terms of active communication, working with you OEMs, and it truly is about almost having a board of directors, but not in the conventional sense. It's about how you work with people internally and externally, but keeping your eye always on the fact that the reason why you have the global mobility architect in the first place is for the organisation. So somewhere along the line, you cannot afford to let those two things disconnect, but stay very much connected. And I think that's where the hard work comes in. There's no room for complacency. You've always got to be taking that journey with everybody, making sure, before you go, is everybody in? Everybody button, seatbelt on before you can't afford to leave anybody behind. So I think that's where the real hard work goes into, is actually just keeping everybody together.
Okay. It will be a challenging journey. Thank you very much for your time. Romain, Daan, Henrik and Velma. Thank you.
Thank you for your warm applause for this panel. Please make sure you will be seated. Thank you, Velma. Thank you, Henrik. Thank you, Daan. Thank you, Romain.